Hey everyone, my name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. This is the Polite Society podcast for December the 20th, 2021. There's my voice coming back to me again. I don't know where that comes from. But we'll soldier on. Thank you for tuning in, and our guest tonight is going to be Holly Sullivan from the Connecticut Citizens Defense League. And we'll be talking with her in just a little bit. Has anybody gone in and done the intro and show notes?
Yes. It looks like it's all updated.
Sure we have, boss.
Okay. I'm going to have to give you all a raise. All right. I think Masada Yub is going to talk to us in 5, 4, 3...
Hey gang, this is Masada Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hi, and welcome to the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. We're recording this one on Monday, December the 20th, 2021. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm Rob Morse, and on tonight's show we talk with Holly Sullivan about both her defense of gun owners in Connecticut and her award as the Grassroots Activist of the Year.
Well, hi, I'm Amanda Suffecool, and we were going to talk about Ohio trying to be state number 22 of constitutional carry.
I'm Charlie Cook, and we will talk about a gun control proposal on the federal level due to the shooting in Oxford, Michigan. So climb aboard,
strap in,
and hang on.
Episode 606 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now. Well, ho, 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 it's the last Polite Society podcast before the big day. Rob, have you got all your Christmas shopping done?
Oh, yes. Yep. They either get live ammo or snap caps. I'm the Grinch.
There you go.
Do you know how much those snap caps cost?
Yeah. Do you know how much live ammo costs?
Actually, snap caps are more expensive. I can't explain how. I taught a new student both some dry practice exercises and some live fire. That was fun. She went from a 22 right on up to a 45 and handled it all very well. She looks at the 45, goes, well, this will be harder to conceal carry. I was on Gun Owners Radio out of San Diego last night, on Bill Frady's Lock and Load Radio this afternoon. I recorded another episode of Self-Defense Gun Stories. Tomorrow we'll be on the Daily Bullet with Paul, and I carry it every day. Amanda, what's about you?
Well, this week the WEWS story came out about women and guns in response to the Harvard study of the same name, Women and Guns. And I cracked up because the reporter titled it, The Second Amendment Now Wears Lipstick. So we know exactly where she got that line from. So you should be able to catch that. It's on my Facebook page and on a couple others. And as a result of that, Tom Gresham has reached out, and I will be a guest on his show on Sunday. So something new for me. How about, yeah, it's kind of cool. How about you, Charlie?
That is great. It's a good thing they got the lipstick line rather than the Betty White line, I'll tell you that.
Ooh. That's our secret.
Right. This is true.
PG, Charlie,
I had
PG.
I'm keeping it clean. I had a class I taught this weekend, and then I ended up driving to upstate New York to film A Loaded Mike with Dan Wass and his crew of characters. And he's got a nice little thing going on there. we spent an hour talking about a number of different stories, including one, I don't know if this will tie in with Holly, but one about a chicken shortage here in Massachusetts due to some things that they proposed 5 years ago, and the law is supposed to go into effect in January, and 2 months before the end of the year, they finally figured out that this is going to be an issue. So I think that show is going to be coming out this Friday with the Loaded Mic. So, Paul, what's been going on the daily bullets and the weekly bullets and the all the stuff you got going on at SAF?
Well, we're going to be regular this week, Monday through Thursday. There's not going to be a show on Friday because of Christmas Eve. And then there may not be a show Monday or Tuesday of next week. What is happening, I'm going to be doing some major renovations to my studio. Everything, and I mean everything in this studio has to go out. And then we're getting a drop-down green screen installed in the studio, and then I have to turn everything 90 degrees, and so that I can fit everything in and have a green screen behind me. And who knows, you may be seeing the Polite Society podcast with me broadcasting from the bridge of the USS Enterprise. Who knows? So, but that's I've been doing planning for I call it the mini GRPC because I still have to tear everything down, move it, and put it back in. So there's just an installation of a green screen and some more additional lighting in there. So that's kind of what's on my horizon this week.
I like the fact that he says, "Who knows if he's going to be on the Enterprise?" We know he's going to be on the Enterprise.
As long as he lives long and prospers, it'll be fine.
There you go. Especially the prosper part, All right. Well, that's kind of what's going on with me. Nothing really, really new gun related in my world. Just planning for some upgrades to the broadcast and things like that. So. Why don't we go ahead and do this? We're going to hear from SAF, and Holly Sullivan is logged in and patiently waiting for us. So we're going to step aside. We're going to hear from SAF, and when we come back, we'll talk to Holly Sullivan about winning the Grassroots Activist of the Year. Hang on, everybody. We'll be right back with that right after this.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have vowed to take away your Second Amendment rights through gun bans, gun confiscation, and government regulations. Now, Joe Biden is no longer hiding his real intentions, and we need you to take action now.
Whether it's a 9mm pistol or whether it's a rifle is ridiculous. I'm continuing to push to eliminate the sale of those things. But
the Biden administration is coming after your right to own any gun, and we need you to text PROTECT2A to 474747 now. Joe Biden has already issued executive orders. He is now demanding Congress push through radical gun legislation. You can fight back to stop Joe Biden's gun grab, but you must text PROTECT2A to 474747. Take action to protect your right to keep and bear arms. We urgently need millions of Americans to text PROTECT2A to 474747. Again, text PROTECT2A to 474747 right now.
Hey, and welcome back to the interview segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining us now, Holly Sullivan. Holly, of course, with the Connecticut Citizens Defense League. Holly, may I be the first on the air to congratulate you for winning the Grassroots Activist of the Year this year from the SAF.
Thank you so much, Paul.
When did you find out that you won that?
It was pretty early in the morning, and Dave Workman called me, and I was not even up and dressed yet. And I was like, "Hey, Dave, what can I do for you?" And he's like, No. I actually have some news for you. So it was, maybe 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, not too long.
Okay. Connecticut Citizens Defense League, we hear a lot about the stuff that's going on in New Jersey, some about what's going on in New York. California, of course, leads the national news when they propose gun control regulations, but Connecticut's right in the mix of that too. And and they've tried and somewhat successfully passed some gun control legislation, and they've tried and you fought and successfully defended against some of that gun control legislation.
Yeah,
Is there anything the legislature should be in Connecticut getting set to be going here real soon? Anything we need to be worried about right now?
So I think a couple of things to keep in mind is what they do in Connecticut, our senators want to do at a national level. So we always need to be watching that. Senator Chris Murphy, a lot of the time he's focused on things like Ethan's Law, safe storage. He's really pushing for universal background checks at a federal level. And really they take kind of the model of what's been done in Connecticut and they want to replicate that federally. So I think all Americans should be watching what's happening in Connecticut to be prepared for, what pushes might be coming in DC. As far as, some of our successes, we've been pretty strong, particularly in stopping ammo taxes. So in one of our last legislative sessions, they were looking to pass ammo taxes where gun owners would actually be funding gun violence prevention programs in our urban areas. So we were successful in stopping that and the impact that would have on especially new shooters, and we know how significant a number of new shooters there are out there. It would be detrimental for people's ability to train and practice and become proficient. There's been a number of successes along the way, and of course there's always struggles as well, and whether it comes to red flag laws, which we were the very first state to ever have red flag laws. We've had them since the 1990s. Safe storage and things like that are things that can be difficult. So we have very onerous safe storage in your vehicle laws where the penalties are pretty harsh. And those are all things that, you keep an eye on states like New York, Connecticut, California, New Jersey, because these are the things that they are looking to do in other places.
All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to my team here. Who's got a question for Holly?
Oh, Holly, I'm sorry that you have such a difficult environment. Thank you for the ways you make it better. But politically, when they say, oh, we need safe storage, we need red flag laws, we need mandatory background checks, those are a promise. Those are a political vow that if you only do what we say, the world will get better, safer, and, I don't know, ice won't form and milk won't spoil. But that's not what we see in Connecticut. Are you able to take the broken promises back to the politicians?
So really, like much of the country, we have a crime problem here that is out of control. We have a lot of youth crime, and part of the biggest struggle here is in the judicial system. So especially the younger offenders or first-time offenders, they're not held to the penalties that are attributed to that crime. So a lot of the time their cases are nollied. When it comes to particularly gun charges, if somebody is not a permitted gun owner, it's very, very likely that charge is going to be dismissed or reduced. If you're a gun owner and you're a permitted gun owner, that's not as likely. So we definitely see a lot of problems, especially with urban crime, where guns are involved and the criminal is not held accountable. We have a major problem in Connecticut with crime right now, and despite the fact that both guns are banned here, there's still crime with them, right? So just because these laws are written...
Oh, oops. Yeah.
...piece of paper does not mean that...
Holly, you dropped. Would you tell me again, just because those laws are written doesn't mean what? You dropped out.
That it's testament that just because the law exists doesn't mean that it's actually going to prevent crime, because it's not working.
It's not working. I wondered that, and I wonder, you suspected that when the law was passed. So did I. Does the media listen to you when you say, "Come on, you guys, you promised, a wonderful world. If only we would give you your next infringement." Does that have any traction?
So, So I get quoted fairly often on our local news media stations, and it's kind of interesting. The snippets that they'll choose to use is kind of subjective. So we might have, a 10 or 15 minute conversation, and the one line that they might pick up is maybe not something that really represents the conversation. I think it's really important to develop relationships with your reporters. I do have one reporter that I work with that I very explicitly say to this reporter, please publish this statement in its entirety, and they will do so. But it takes a while to get there with somebody.
Yeah, okay.
So, Holly, I'd like to talk about the ghost gun thing, because how does Connecticut deal with the fact that there were so many guns that were not serialized prior to 1968 in their definition of non-serialized and ghost guns as they try to make them illegal?
So if you're creating one now, you need to apply for a serial number. We are not required right now to go backwards and take something that's in our existing collection and modify it. But going forward, if you're going to build something, then you're certainly going to need to call and actually get an authorization number from the state of Connecticut before it becomes a firearm. But you're not, if you have an existing item, an antique in your collection, you're not currently required to go and bring it somewhere and get it etched.
Are you allowed to bring more antiques into the state?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you are. So you can still buy antiques. So we've got, we definitely have issues here. And unfortunately, there was, even since this ghost gun law was passed, there was a notable murder here in Connecticut committed with a firearm that was constructed. And, it just goes to show, just because it's written on a piece of paper, it doesn't mean anything, right? And if criminals aren't being held accountable, what point is it? It's only the good guys that are going to sit there and say, well, I can't do that, so I won't.
Amen.
Holly, you know more about ghost guns than I do. We're still, down here in Louisiana, we just buy our guns. Well, although some of us make them. What is the attraction to the criminal of a ghost gun? Is it a novelty? I'm thinking, given the theft of firearms, it's not like you hear, oh yeah, man, I'll pay you twice what you'd pay at a gun shop because this is an illegal transaction. As near as I understand, criminals actually pay less than what I'd pay at the gun shop. Do you know how that's worked out?
Yeah, so the vast majority of guns that are used in gun crimes are still stolen firearms, right? So it's something that somebody has filed off a serial number, it's stolen from somebody's collection, whatever it is. That's still the vast majority of firearms that are out there. Ghost guns are not the prominent item that a criminal is using. They're still trading stolen firearms.
Yeah, the ghost guns are a novelty rather than the bread and butter of criminal activity. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
What else? I think one of the first times I heard about you, which was when you and this other nefarious character were I think, doing a fashion show up in Connecticut. You do a lot of, you have your hands in everything. We've been very serious. There are a lot of new gun owners in every state. Tell me about outreach to new gun owners in Connecticut.
It's been amazing. So with CCDL, I actually, we have really two coordinators that are in my team of 16 coordinators that run this organization. Dr. Walt Cupson runs our outreach division, so they are just on the ground. If there's a gun show going on, even if we get invited to a Jeep festival, we're there. We're there, and we're spreading the word. And then Peter Estrada, who is really focused on urban outreach and urban engagement, and he makes sure that training classes are available in Spanish and that they're affordable and all of those things that we need to be doing to make sure that we're good stewards of the things that we want to convey to new gun owners. What I thought was really interesting, so last week was Little rocky here. It was the 9th anniversary of Sandy Hook, and there's a lot of emotions behind that. We're not in any way, shape, or form removed from the sympathy and the empathy that goes out. I live about 6 minutes away from Sandy Hook Elementary School myself, so this is, very near and dear to us. And one of their reporters put out an article stating that gun control advocates were frustrated by a lack of progress for over 9 years. And a really, really interesting number jumped out that in 2009, there were 13,000 new permit applicants in the state of Connecticut that year for their pistol permits. Here in 2021, 9 years later, so far this year we've had 44,000 permit applicants. We have 44,000 new gun owners in the state of Connecticut this year. That's huge. That is a huge number compared to where we were 9 years ago. So when any politician tells you that Americans want more gun control and Americans believe in this and that, they don't. And they don't here in Connecticut either.
Holly, a poll just came out recently about our how we find gun control more and more repulsive. A 15-point swing. And other than committed Democrat voters, that's true of Republicans, it's true of moderates, it's true of independents. I wonder, what's happening, do you think, to these new gun owners? Any feel? Are they just the average Connecticut citizen? They look like my neighbor.
Yeah, they sure are. They come from every demographic. I mean, it's amazing. So we have our membership meetings. We do it at a VFW hall that holds, 200 people roughly. And looking around the room last Tuesday, and it's so eye-opening to see new people coming out that you've never seen before. We kind of had our core group, but every single meeting, I go, wow, that's a new face I haven't seen, and that's a new person I haven't seen, and thank you for being here. And it's changing astronomically, and it doesn't matter what part of the state they're in. It doesn't matter if they're suburban or urban or rural. People are gravitating towards it, and I think it comes down to a realization that in America today, you are responsible for yourself, and there's it's not reasonable to expect that a police officer can be there to prevent a crime before it happens. We know that that's highly unlikely, and I think that there's just a lot more awareness around it, and I don't think that people believe that the law-abiding gun owner, the person that goes and gets fingerprinted and background checked, and keep in mind, in Connecticut, we have massive amounts we do background checks a billion times throughout this process, and you're going to get background checked at your local level, you're going to get background checked at the state level, you're going to get background checked every single time you buy a gun. You get background checked here like nobody's business. These are not the bad guys, and the people know that.
I want to get a couple comments in here off social media, if I could, real quick. First one coming in is from Matthew. He says, in the 90s, there was a movie with a homemade gun in the line of fire with John Malkovich. It's not a new idea. And then John over on the Facebook side says, any serial number scratched off a gun is a ghost gun in the Philly metro area. Yeah, and that's they're also including those in the ghost gun numbers that they're recovering. The ghost gun numbers they're recovering in San Diego. They're using firearms that are recovered with serial numbers removed or
defaced.
Defaced, yeah. Mm-hmm. Elaine replied to that and said, "Whoops, yeah, not a ghost gun if you file off serial numbers." That's a 20-year federal crime. Well, yeah, but these are criminals. They don't expect to get caught. Just like they don't expect to get caught for robbing the 7-Eleven with the gun they use. So, it's not a deterrent for them.
Yep.
It is. So, Holly, I've been down to a couple of events that you guys do down at the CCDL, and it's great to hear that the gun owners are growing down there. I went to the banquet a couple years ago and hung out with you and Lauren Hartnett, and there were so many people at the banquet. I couldn't believe it. You are running an amazing organization, and if I'm correct, you're the only female that is running a state-run pro gun group. Correct?
Yeah, so there's so CCDL is the only group, preeminent group that is run by a woman in America. I know there is an organization in New Jersey. New Jersey has quite a few gun groups. There is one organization there that has a woman, but I'm the only woman in the country that leads like their state's primary 2A organization. And as far as our banquet is packed. Usually it sells out. The year that you came down, I think we had something like 425 folks there crammed in. We sold every seat, and we actually are doing it again February 12th of 2022. CCDL will be holding their next anniversary banquet, so we're excited to have that. And actually, Charlie, I think you came out to our last one that we had to do in an open air arena because of COVID, and we had a few hundred folks there for that pig roast. So our people show up. I'll tell you, New Englanders are tough. We will show up if it's 30 degrees and pouring and it's outside. We'll still be there. So the weather won't deter us, and we do it in February, and it's always a good time. And what's really important to keep in mind is one of the most important things that CCDL does, and the fundraising is so critical here, is we launch a lot of lawsuits. Second Amendment Foundation is really, truly, and deeply a partner with us in a lot of ways in the way that we work with the court system. So we had a couple of victories. We sued Governor Lamont when he issued Executive Order 7E, which stopped the fingerprintings during COVID, so people were not able to get their fingerprints done. These lawsuits are really, really important, and because that is exactly why our government is designed the way that it is. We have a balance of power, right? So if the legislature does something that the court then finds that, you can't do that, that's the only way to stop it, right? Until they get checked by the courts, they're not checked. So a lot of my time is actually spent working on vetting plaintiffs, and I spend a lot of time in that arena, like talking to our members, talking to people, saying, what did you go through? What was your experience? Where's your, what's your documentation look like? Let's lay this all out. And I do a lot of that work in advance with our plaintiffs, like before they actually become official in the case. So the fact that we have these events really keeps those efforts going, right? We sell a lot of stickers, we sell a lot of t-shirts, all that stuff, but man, when we get together for a couple 100-person dinner, that's when we're able to really say, okay, here's what we're able to afford to do this year because we want to go after this and we want to go after that.
Holly, we're coming up on a break. Could I have you hang on for one more segment with us?
Sure.
All right. Folks, we are going to step aside. We're going to hear from the CNJFO. We'll be right back with more Holly Sullivan right after this.
New Jersey is a civil rights wasteland where an unconstitutional law known as justifiable need keeps ordinary citizens from exercising their right to bear arms. New Jersey spits in the eye of freedom, ignores the Bill of Rights and the Heller decision. New Jersey politics are an anti-civil rights bulldozer and a spreading cancer. The Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners, a tax-exempt nonprofit, has a goal to defeat justifiable need, reverse course on all anti-freedom laws, and render aid to other jurisdictions by filing Supreme Court-bound litigation. CNJFO is a beacon of freedom behind the Iron Curtain in New Jersey. Join CNJFO's strong, enthusiastic patriots. Support the Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners today. Protect all our rights and return freedom to the Garden State. To donate or learn more, go to cnjfo.com.
All right, we are back, and I need to bring up the 6-shot instead of the 4-shot. This is the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Before we get back into the interview, there has been a lot of social media comments, specifically Sandhills Media over on the YouTube side. Dude, I'm going to get to all those comments, but I'm going to wait till this news segment. They're really good. I want to pop them all in, but I'm going to hold those for the news segment, so don't go away, man. Really quickly, I want to get in two comments, and we'll go. John says, in our area, a .500 Glock to a lawful person is $1,500 to a criminal. Yeah, I've heard it's actually the other way around, that you could is somebody that $1,000 Kimber can be bought on the streets of Chicago for $3. That's what I've heard. I don't know. I'm not in the market for a hot gun myself.
John, where are you from?
I don't know where he's from.
It's not.
I got to tell you.
Because it's the law of supply and demand, Paul. So if it is cheaper in Chicago, that means that there are more of them.
You know what? That's right. That's absolutely right. And Larry Benson says, not enough exposure is available on how much the numbers of guns stolen from police. I have no way even to know how to get to that information, or I would sure be willing to spend an afternoon digging for it.
There's a government report on an annual basis about police and lost firearms, but they group them together as to the ones that they lost in a fire, the ones they lose in car wrecks, the ones they lose, misplaced. They all kind of, but
they left in the toilet at the Buc-ee's, or yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the best was the AR on the back deck when they drove away.
Oh, oopsie.
Nice.
Holly, you were mentioning that. Oops. I'm going to barge in.
Yes.
Charlie, go.
I was just going to say we have to remember that some people think that only the police and military should have guns. Go ahead, Rob.
Holly, you were saying that the number of concealed carry permit holders grew 5-fold in your state since when you were first there. And do you have a feel for how much that number would have grown if the state was processing permits the way it's required to by law?
Yeah, no, and that's such an impossible number, because we definitely have folks that go, it's not worth it, it takes too long. So the premise of a lawsuit that we're involved in right now is I've got 4 municipalities, our 4 largest cities, the cities of Hartford, Waterbury, New Haven, and Bridgeport. I have a current lawsuit in court right now with folks that have waited over a year. So who knows how many more people, and statute in the state of Connecticut is 8 weeks. They have 8 weeks to issue your permit, and people are waiting 14 months, 16 months. And it's not cheap. So there's a lot of people that are dissuaded from even getting involved in the process because the reputation is just that it's so difficult. Not to mention, there's also things that there are departments out there that are asking for letters of reference from your neighbors and letters of reference from your employer, which they're not supposed to be doing. They cannot deny you if you refuse to do those things. So a lot of people just maybe don't want to do it simply because they don't want to get involved in that whole process.
Wow. There are some people who desperately need to be sued, and you and SAF are the people to do it. Thank you.
Yeah. Happy to do it.
We very much appreciate the fact that you were on the front lines. And speaking of the front lines, I want to go to something just on a little lighter note. I understand that you are the chicken mama to some baby peeps, and they have some really unique names. And I'd like you to share some with some of our listeners, because I think they're hysterical.
So I've got Debbie Gibson. She's got big fluffy hair, and she's a great mom. And we've got a couple of really good ones. Donna Trump. But the most recent one that kind of took over on social media is Kyle Chickenhouse. So Kyle Chickenhouse hatched on the day of the verdict. And what do you do with the tough little guy that just, it comes on out, and he lives in the house with us for a little bit because he was an incubator chick, so he's not ready to be outside yet. So Kyle Chickenhouse, he's a good guy to have around.
You also had some bears, though, who'd been predating your chickens, right?
Yeah, so definitely we have a lot of predators. We're definitely no exception to that. Bobcat, bear, raccoon. I've caught animals in my coop attacking my flock, and you do what you got to do, right? You got to protect yourself, protect your livestock, and we do that.
These aren't all regular chickens. Like, you have some crazy looking chickens, right? Like some of these high rent, froofy looking chickens.
Right.
Right? Like you.
If you, I don't know, Paul, if you've got my Facebook open there, but so my chickens are, the breed is called Polish. So they went virtually extinct many years ago. They're actually still on the endangered list.
Oh, I'm working on it quickly. Hang on.
Yeah. And there should be some pictures of Kyle Chicken House in there. So they've got these like big floofy heads, and there's a couple things that are unfortunate with them. They have almost no maternal instinct whatsoever. So I have like one hen of another breed that is like my surrogate mom. So she takes care of any babies that hatch because they don't really have any interest. But they also peck each other's heads because their floofs are so interesting. Sometimes they kill each other, which is just kind of the nature of chickens. They're not very kind to one another, and their floofs are really interesting, and they're not very bright. So they will they'll go after each other's heads, and sometimes that ends catastrophically. Hence, they were almost extinct at one point in time. They were virtually, but they're making a huge comeback. A lot of people are interested in them. So I love my big floof head chickens. They're awesome.
I'll tell you, have you named you had a new little girl chicken, right? That just recently hatched?
So yes, so I had a chicken hatch the other day. She did. She's back with mom. Gosh, if I had my phone handy, I would shoot you guys some pictures because I just took a picture of her today, just a couple hours ago. Mom took her back without any issues. She's with her siblings. So basically what had happened is mom had left the nest and left an egg there. The egg was cold. I kind of took a shot and threw it in the incubator to see what would happen. And lo and behold, I was holding this little egg and you could hear it peeping. And then 2 hours later, there was a chicken. So I won't know for a couple months if it's male or female, but she's holding her own and she's back with her siblings or his siblings, and mom is doing mom's thing. So all's good out there. You know, they're like my chickens are my zen, right? So other people might like watch goldfish in a fish tank and like it's kind of mesmerizing. For me, it's like they're like my land goldfish. So.
I am working feverishly behind the scenes to try and get this up.
Are you going to be able to pull up?
Okay.
See, because Kyle's Chicken House was the one that really made it to where I had to ask you the question because, and I know that your daughter tends to try to name them after dead presidents, and so you end up with that. So the fact that this one was, you know, the whole Chicago Kenosha Kyle Rittenhouse story, and it was like Kyle Chicken House is just the best.
That's Holly, can you?
Yeah, I can put. Let me do this. There we go. I'm going to put some pictures off of Facebook over onto the screen, and I had to really. Oops! I need to make sure that's not there. There we go. Get that out of the way. Holly, you're going to have to. Can you see that? You're going to have to describe it because I don't know what we're looking at there, other than some very cute little chicks.
Yeah, so one of those eggs is the egg that hatched the other day, the one we were just talking about. The last egg has not hatched yet, so I'm guessing that it won't. These are actually silky chicks, so this is the breed of the mama named Debbie Gibson. These are silkies, not Polish. So I've got 2 partridge there, 2 splash, and 4 black. So the mom, I would never normally hatch chicks in December in Connecticut. It's like kind of an April-May thing to do, but the mom kind of hid her nest from me. So by the time I found them, they were a little they were more developed. Then it was time to throw them in the frying pan, and right to life, they got to stay.
And I don't think I'm going to run across anything too risque, but this is all within one group of photos, so.
Yep.
Is that Mama
that's
there?
Debbie Gibson. Yeah, that's Mama. Debbie Gibson. Yeah.
Are you putting up
Okay.
Yeah, and they all fit under her. Like you wouldn't even know they were there because they're all just under her. And if you pick her up, they all go up with her. It's crazy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So yeah, to Amanda's point, so I have a pig named James Madison Pig. Unfortunately, Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr both passed away. They're buried next to each other. I've got a turkey named Henry Knox. So we've got the Schuyler sisters, Angelica, Eliza, and Peggy. So yeah, we kind of go through the all of the figures of the American Revolution in our little farm.
So I gotta ask, did Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, did they like each other?
No, and if I can find the picture, I will show you a picture of them like facing off together. And what's ironic is Aaron Burr actually passed away first, but Alexander Hamilton followed him by only about 60 days. So they, sometimes chickens can be cruel. So, but they did not always get along.
Life in the coop. Oh my goodness.
Okay, I suspect you're telling us about chickens because there are things about the lawsuits that you'd like to tell us that you can't talk about yet. Are there any presents that'll come out at Christmas and make me tremendously happy by who you're going to sue?
Well, there are some things in the works, that's for sure. And I would say stay tuned, hopefully within the next 90 days. First quarter,
all right.
We should have some news happening. So there is definitely things in the works, and I'm always looking. So we definitely have some exciting stuff happening, and hopefully in the first quarter.
Now, are you holding some of them just until you can see what's happening with the Supreme Court versus New York versus Bruin? Because I'm hearing that from others.
Yeah. So there's always a strategy there, and sometimes that changes, and that's really like something that I won't get into too much. But it's definitely something that's always on our radar is if we have something that's already filed and where it would be in the system when certain decisions come down. So I'll say that somewhat generally. Yeah.
Okay.
I will say the attorneys that we work with are amazing. The attorneys that we frequently work with are also legislators. So State Representative Doug Dubitsky and State Representative Craig Fishbein. I mean, you really can't ask for gentlemen that are more tied into it. Not only are they attorneys in this arena, but they're also part of the legislature. So they understand it, and they just like lead our issue. They know it so well, and it's just such an honor to be able to work with them because it's not like calling in somebody who kind of practices in this area. They know it so well, and they're just such a wealth of information. So,
wow.
All right. Well, we are coming up on the end of the segment. Again, Holly, if somebody's interested in helping out the struggle in Connecticut, they don't have to be a citizen of Connecticut to belong to the Connecticut Citizens Defense League, do they?
Nope, not at all. So you're just going to go to ccdl.us, and there will be an option there to join, or you can hit /join, and then all of a sudden you're a member. So it's really that easy. We don't charge anything for basic level membership, so please feel free to join CCDL, and of course we always need donations. So like I said, what happens here is coming everybody else's way at some point, whether it's at the federal level or you just have some crazy person out there that would like to see it in your state too. So watch what happens in Connecticut, and if you become a member, you'll get our email alerts, and you'll be notified what we've got going on, and stay up to speed with what's happening here, because what happens in these states really is what sets the tone for what could even be a decade out for other people, but it is coming. So and don't think for a minute that this is like lost territory. It's just that we have to fight. It's a daily fight.
All right. Well, Holly, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us tonight. And again, congratulations on Grassroots Activist of the Year. That's very cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, folks, we're going to step aside to break. When we come back, you're going to hear from a voice you haven't heard from in a while. Susan is back to help us with news and DGUs. So we're going to hear from ACLDN. We'll be right back right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Givens, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tueller, and led by Network President Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
Hey, and welcome back to the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. This is our news segment. Before we get to Susan, and I hope she's ready. Are you there, Susan?
No.
Oh, okay. She's not there. All right. Before we get, I want to get some comments in that came in early in the show from Sandhills Media that are just, I think they're really funny, but I didn't want to get to them in the interview segment because I thought that might blow the interview totally out, and I didn't want to do that. But let's.
You mean more than talking chickens?
Yeah. Well, no, we might not have ever got to chickens, but let's get to. He started off with a bunch of hashtags. He started off with, "I want to be like Amanda Suffecool." Then he went, "It takes a pounding," and then of course he had to follow that up with, "Charlie is a great brand," and then hashtag Rob needs a hashtag. And finally he follows up with hashtag so does Paul. I don't know that that's true. I don't know. And last one, Warsaw Patriot, and he was actually the very first one to comment. I want to get this one up before we go into the actual news. Warsaw Patriot says, I got me a CMMG 22 conversion kit for the AR-15. I'm not shooting any more 5.56 223 anytime soon, not with the prices soaring high. 22 long rifle is cheaper. Yeah, it always has been, and probably always will be, unless they find a way to outlaw 22 long rifle, in which case, if they do, just go back to Amanda's show yesterday and watch that, because they were talking about 22 short, and you can learn about 22 short there. So yeah, anyway,
I was at a gun store recently, and they were selling 100 rounds of 9mm target ammo for $50.
For 100 rounds?
Yes, $50 for 100 rounds. So I may have bought 2 boxes.
Oh, you know,
wow.
I'm going to throw a plug in for a friend. Go to ammoman.com. Unless they is there a law in Massachusetts where they cannot ship ammo into Massachusetts?
You can ship ammo into Massachusetts. It's all up to the person that's doing the shipping.
Okay.
It's the hazmat. But see, the issue, it really is that when the gun shops bought, they're buying on the curve, and then they have to sell on that curve. So they can't, even as the price comes down, they have to sell what they've got, or they've got to start to kind of load level it to take the hit. And so sometimes you got to pay whatever you're paying just to clear it off the shelves to move new stuff in. But I think we saw 9mm going. I saw them as high as 69 cents a round. I don't know that I saw anything higher than that, but that was where it went in the peak. So crazy.
Wow. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead, and we're caught up on comments. I do want to make sure everybody watching knows, if you want to throw your comment in, we love, especially the snarky, snide ones. Get them in there. I'll put them on the air. We'll laugh along with you at ourselves. But yeah,
yep.
Especially those.
Exactly.
All right.
Especially those.
Good.
One last piece of news is: did you guys see Rachel Malone's news?
Yes.
That she just received a promotion through GOA, and someone else is taking her spot, and she's moving on up.
Yep, she's going to the national.
That's great.
Yes.
Where is she? What's the position? Where is she going to be?
So GOA, she's the deputy director of something.
Today I'm excited, and I'm reading this right off her Facebook post. Today I'm excited to announce that I've accepted a new position with GOA. I'm now Deputy National Director of State and Local Affairs, working to help GOA achieve even greater things.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, that's awesome.
Sounds like she's staying in Texas, maybe?
Yeah, she said she's staying in Texas. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be the other thing. She'll still be based in Texas, but doing things more on a national level.
Right.
And
all right. So she.
Now that we've accomplished what they wanted to accomplish in Texas, now she's free to move to the next level, and it's like good on her.
Yeah, maybe she can help out with Ohio.
Right.
Susan, what do we got up in news?
After the Oxford High School shooting, there has been a call for gun control, both within Michigan and at the federal level. Congresswoman Elisa Slotkin, who represents Oxford and the surrounding communities, proposed a mandatory gun storage bill. Dr. John Lott stated in a recent article that Michigan averages less than 2 accidental gun deaths per year for those under 18 from 2010 to 2019. That's half the national average, and Michigan has a significantly higher percentage of households with guns than we see nationwide. Michigan does not currently have a storage law. Studies have shown mandating locking guns has unintended consequences. Criminals are more emboldened to invade people's homes. There are 300 more murders and 4,000 more rapes in states with these laws. In the UK, the burglary rate is twice the US, and 59% of those are hot burglaries, those where people are in the home. In the US, that rate is 13%.
New Jersey had proposed very similar laws. I think we're going to talk about them in a follow-on news story. Basically, their storage laws are so stringent, it's almost as if you don't have a gun in the home. By the time you do everything necessary to get it out of storage, the problem's passed, or you carry on your body.
Rob did not watch the Daily Bullet today, did he?
No.
He was on with Bill Frady.
On somebody's show. Yeah.
Yeah. I had John Petrolino on as we're speaking now just about 2 hours ago. And we talked about that. And that is the one bill in New Jersey that died, is the safe storage law. The rest of them
Thank
are still
goodness.
The rest of them are still coming full bore, but the safe storage law died.
I mean, they got to keep in mind that if you have a safe storage law, then you have an inspector of safe storage. So you have I'm from the government and I'm here to inspect your home. Right?
Right.
What else, when they come in, are they going to see that you don't want them to see? Do you have a dog without a license? Do you have, some kind of contraband? There's all different little rules and things that people are like, I'm not comfortable with the government knowing everything that goes on under each and every roof in a community.
The other thing that this could lead to is the government saying, listen, a cable lock isn't good and a trigger lock's not good. You have to buy a $3,000 Liberty safe that weighs 600 pounds. That's going to be sufficient. And then you have to have an insurance policy to cover all of the any crime, any theft, or whatever. You have to have an insurance policy for all this stuff too. Mm-hmm. And this is the government forcing people to purchase things that they don't want. Or
but Charlie, it's only a tax.
It's only a tax. All right. I'm not sure who said that. Was that Mitt Romney that said it's just a tax?
That was Chief Justice Roberts who said that.
Yeah. So yes, the only way the government's going to know that you're storing your guns properly is if they get in your house. And why would they be in your house?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be Pollyanna until one of our listeners, since they didn't do it before me, I'll do it before them. Think of all the people now who will want to conceal carry because it's that or lock it up in the glacier.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, even in states like New Jersey, if you've got a permit, you can carry in your house.
Even if you don't have a carry permit, you can carry in your house.
The Heller decision, basically, and I'm oversimplifying this, but not by much, I don't believe. The Heller decision said anywhere that is covered by the United States Constitution, you can legally carry inside your house.
Okay.
There we go. And then when you tell your friends, when your friends come over and they see that you're carrying a gun in your house, they think you're crazy. And the good news is they probably won't come back if they think you're crazy. But if they don't think you're crazy, then they're good friends, right?
Yeah, exactly.
On the other hand, you
former
could carry
bandmates, one of the two.
Yeah, you could carry concealed in your home or your business.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good practice if freedom ever breaks out in your state. Where are we off to next, Susan?
And
Freedom
if you carry
breaks out.
concealed, they're not going to know unless they're really good friends and give you a nice tight hug.
Really good friends.
Really good friends.
We can't stress that enough.
I wrote about this next story before I had my stroke, and it took this long to come to fruition. Susan, tell us about California.
On Tuesday, a grand jury handed down an indictment against Sheriff Lori Smith of Santa Clara, California. She is charged with willful and corrupt misconduct while in office. The counts were 1. Illegally issuing concealed carry weapon permits to VIPs. 2. Failing to properly investigate whether non-VIPs should receive CCW permits. 3. Keeping non-VIP CCW applications pending indefinitely. 4. Illegally accepting sweet tickets, food, and drinks at Sharks games. 5. Failing to report Sharks game gifts on financial documents. 6. Committing perjury by failing to disclose Sharks game gifts. And 7. Failing to cooperate with internal affairs investigations surrounding the maltreatment of Andrew Hogan when he was in custody. Now note that people who were willing to pay bribes to get their carry permits when it was up to the sheriff's discretion if she issues a permit.
And I want to make sure I'm clear on this. Santa Clara County, guess what is in Santa Clara County? There's this town called Cupertino. Cupertino is the headquarters of the World Center of Evil, otherwise known as the Apple Corporation.
Ouch.
Well, yeah, these were the Apple was the director of security.
Yes,
was one of the guys who was saying, you know, we give all your deputies and your office staff free Apple products if my security guys could get permits. Yeah.
Right.
Just to make clear that this was not somebody giving the sheriff a Coke as the person walked by at the Sharks game. No, I think there was a $500 minimum that if you get a gift less than that, you don't even have to disclose it. So these were significant gifts over a long period.
Yeah.
Well,
these were
and the other
box
part
sweets.
is, and they prosecuted her. As you read that, they're going after her under campaign violations because politicians they've put teeth in the whole campaign finance violation stuff, and so they want to use those laws because politicians don't want other politicians to be getting something over on politicians, and so they put teeth in the law.
To quote a line from a movie, I'm not sure what movie it is. I'm trying to remember, and I just can't. They got Al Capone on mail fraud. It doesn't matter what the law is they get her on. They're getting her on this. And, yes.
Now,
I thought Al Capone was tax evasion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Close.
I was talking to people in San Diego.
He didn't send it through the mail.
That's right.
He didn't send it through the mail.
I was talking to people in San Diego, and those VIP permits are fascinating because the guy goes, other than being really important, I handle cash. And then somebody else writes down, let's see, he got a permit because he said I handle cash. He said he handles $1,000 a week. I handle $1,000 a week. Now, Sheriff, tell me why I can't have it since my reasons are identical to ones you already passed.
Yep.
And they pried open the permit process that way. unless you've got a sheriff who can just sit on an application and go, we're still looking at it.
And that's one of the charges. We're still looking at it. Indefinite holds.
All right, and we're big shock. We've talked ourselves through a segment. Let's briefly talk about New Jersey and Ohio. Susan, tell us about New Jersey.
New Jersey Assembly Committee approved a package of 8 bills that would increase gun control in the state. A5030 would change purchase ID cards from indefinite to a 4-year expiration. A1280 bans 50 caliber guns. A6218 amends the public nuisance law to go after the gun industry. A5647 concerns safe gun storage. A5787 microstamping. A1292 ammunition dealers are required to maintain electronic records of sales and report to the state police. A3686 requires gun owners moving to New Jersey to obtain firearm purchaser ID cards within 60 days. And AR277 reconvene the states for Gun Safety Summit. Why would anybody move to New Jersey?
Well, amen. And talking to John earlier today, again, John Petrolino, the nuisance law, they can also go after you for advertising your firearms business. So that's under the public nuisance. So, yeah.
What I notice is, go ahead, please, Charlie.
A lot of this stuff we've seen in other places, and we know it goes nowhere. Like the microstamping they did in Maryland, 12 or 15 years ago or something, and they spent $5 million to research microstamping ammunition and found out that it helped solve 0 crimes. So that's just taking $5 million and flushing it down the toilet.
I'm just wondering if they're going to start handing out nail files when they sell a new gun. Because...
Well, they don't even have to. The stamp is so little that it doesn't last very long before...
Oh, just go to shoot a box of ammo is what you're saying?
Yeah, it's not going to... I mean, I work in the stamping industry, and we work really hard to keep a number that's a 1/4 inch tall legible as you go through. So, and a number on ammo is got to be microscopic. How are they going to put it in
on a
there?
firing pin, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
its life expectancy is nil.
I mean, not only that, you can, like Paul said, you can take a file and just nick it a hair on the firing pin, and then it's gone. Like, do they not think this through?
No.
They don't care.
I
one of the things that, again, stands out glaring to me, you're a cop in New Jersey, none of those laws apply to you.
Yeah, you're right. I got to get a couple of these comments in because, first of all, Sandhills Media, John, man, you're killing it tonight. You are killing it tonight.
He's on it.
My wife asked why I carry in the house. I said Decepticons. Then I laughed, and she laughed. The coffee maker laughed. So, yeah.
Nice.
Larry Benson says... Go, Charlie.
No, keep going.
Larry Benson says, here we go again, reframing to manipulate POV. Point of view,
Point of view?
Yeah.
Point of view, yeah.
Right, yeah. Yep.
You know, the great thing is we've all heard horror stories from New Jersey, and if you can get a permit in 60 days, that would be a record.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Now, we got to go to break. Let's do Ohio, but yeah, let's do Ohio. Susan.
Ohio Senate passes permitless carry. There are 2 different bills in the legislature, so they'll have to decide which one to put through the complete General Assembly and send on to Governor DeWine. Since the Senate bill was considered after the House bill, it includes a civil immunity with a provision for a pretrial hearing. Plaintiffs have to prove you did not act in self-defense. Thank you, Kyle Rittenhouse and Assistant District Attorney Binger.
Yeah. I actually think it's slightly different than that. I believe that what they're going to do is they're going to take the House version and the Senate version, put them in committee. They're going to kind of cherry pick out, send it back for a quick touch for both, and then send it to the governor.
Okay.
When I'd heard that they were different, I thought, oh, that's just politics. And then I heard that the Senate included that provision where, no, you probably need a reason before you can sue the guy who did self-defense. Charlie, what do you think?
I was just going to say I would love to see Ohio become the 22nd state because Amanda says they follow everybody, and she's looking at the 39th state.
Yeah. Anything above
however,
40, I'm going to be amazed.
Ohio will have concealed permitless carry before Massachusetts does. You can rest assured.
All right. Well, let's do this. Let's head off to break. We've got a DGU segment we got to get to, and I still want to try to be out of here by the bottom of the hour. So we're going to hear from ACLDN, and we'll be right back right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Gibbons, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by Network President Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
All right, and we are back. It's the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. And this is our defensive gun use segment. And I got to find show notes because even though we've done 606 of these, I still have to read it. These discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. The defensive gun use segment is intended as information, not as training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations. So, Susan, are we ready to go to Oceanside, California?
We are. You hear a crashing sound and the sound of people in your home. You roll out of bed and grab your gun. You look into your home and see several intruders. At least one of them has a gun. You shoot at them and they shoot back. Now they run from your home. You stay inside and call 911. The police were already headed to the area because your neighbors reported the gunshots. You put your gun away when the police arrive. Officers find one of your attackers at the scene. Emergency medical services declare him dead. Police arrest the other 5 robbers as they drive from the neighborhood. One of your attackers is taken to the hospital with a gunshot wound. This attacker was recently convicted of armed assault and was out on bond awaiting sentencing. Your attackers are held on charges of first-degree robbery and felony murder. You are not charged with a crime.
Now, let me point out, this is California. Are we shocked that he was on bond awaiting sentencing? And, oh, by the way, how much do you want to bet the other 2 are now out on bond awaiting court appearances?
Wow. What I noticed is...
Sucker bet.
Yeah. What the elephant in this story is 6 on 1, and the homeowner won.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And can you really get by with that 6-shot revolver or that 10-shot Massachusetts magazine?
I always tell people they should get an old Glock and they should get a high cap magazine because bad guys have friends.
There are times where you say, okay, I'm going to lock myself in the bedroom, and this guy, had he walked out into the middle of his home, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He could have been killed a dozen ways. But you don't have to fight fair. You know, in the dim of your house, 5 guys are there. All they would ever see is a muzzle flash, and only part of that because you're hidden by a corner and a doorway, and they never saw it coming, and that's okay. That's why you're alive. If you've thought about it ahead of time so you don't walk into the middle of your house.
Right. I mean, that's a huge point, Rob, because if you when you put your house to bed tonight, look at it. I mean, really look at it. What lights are there? What shadows are there? Where would, if somebody moved, would you see them? I mean, my electric toothbrush puts off enough light that the hallway has a shadow in it, just from the little light on the toothbrush. But, you know, and so I know exactly what it is, and I know that if somebody broke through that, you would see it. You'd see the shadow on the wall. You'd see, you know, look at what your microwave's doing. Look at what your TV's doing. And if somebody moved, what would it look like on the wall? You know your house, so think about knowing your house.
Absolutely. And there may be, there are tricks you can do, especially if you have smart home devices like turn on lights in one part of the house remotely, you know, without giving away your location. Just, you know, turn their attention somewhere else, and all of a sudden should have been paying attention where you currently aren't. So
Alexa, AC/DC, full volume.
Let the
For those
bodies
about
hit
to
the
rock.
floor. Yeah. All
Alexa,
right.
Machine Gun Kelly, full volume.
You know, I'm really glad I've got you on headset, not from the speaker that's down between my knees, because she's right over there.
Paul?
Yes.
What is the routine you have Alexa set forth in the morning when Michael is babysitting the dogs?
I hope we do not get pulled for this. Just a second here. Alexa, let there be light. Nah, she's not going to do it.
Of course not.
What happens when I do that? All the lights go on throughout the house, full intensity, because I can adjust the volume, the intensity of the lights, and all of the speakers go to full volume, and Reveille plays.
So your dog sitter hates you.
You know, he has to love us. He's obligated to love us. He's our son. I mean, it's the law.
It's the neighbors that hate him.
Exactly.
There's enough hate to go around.
All right.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Susan, let's talk about Compton.
You walk to your car on the way to work. It's 6:15 when you open your car door. That's when a middle-aged Hispanic man runs up and grabs you. He has a knife in his hand, and he tells you to step away from your car and give him your keys. You're armed. You drop your keys and step to the side. You present your concealed firearm and shoot your attacker several times. Now he stumbles back and drops his knife. You stop shooting. This news story doesn't say if 911 was called from the driveway or if he went back inside the house to call for help. Police found the attacker in the driveway. EMS declares your attacker dead at the scene from 3 gunshot wounds in the upper chest. You give a statement to the police. Police take your gun and your attacker's knife as evidence. You are not charged with a crime.
Do you have a backup gun for when your primary goes away? And by the way, Rob, this one also happened in California, and they apparently, from this story, he not charged with. He wasn't even arrested that night, I don't believe.
Right. And that tells me, and they didn't say it out loud, Let's just put it this way. If he didn't have a permit, they would have mentioned that the defendant was arrested for having a firearm without a permit. What I suspect, because of what they didn't say, is that he's a businessman who doesn't want to transmit to the world that he's carrying.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Could very well be.
He might be working at Apple. We're not sure.
Compton, no, that's a long way from. Well, okay, I take.
You can work
It was a good line, Shirley.
There is
It's a good line.
It's very clever.
Look at me.
But there is another point that you can be from Humboldt County, way up to the north and gone, and you're visiting your brother and helping his business down in Compton. Your permit is still good down there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
So,
in Beverly Hills and in San Francisco.
I suspect he's just a businessman, but he might have been, he was living in his non-permanent residence and he had his permit. Yeah, we're everywhere.
I want to bring in a couple more points on this one. 3 shots to the chest. Great. 3 shots, good, and then he stopped shooting. Great.
Yep.
And when the threat stops, you stop. And so apparently, bad guy went down, shooting stopped. Awesome.
So many things were right. I mean, first of all, you don't bring a gun to a knife to a gunfight. He fired 3 shots. He stopped shooting. He had his gun with him. It says here that he dropped his his keys
for a distraction.
And so he's got a little misdirection. Pulls back, steps aside, pulls the gun out. I mean, this is textbook what should happen.
He practices, he trains. That's what this says to me. This is a guy who
he's
takes
got some
classes.
education. Yeah, absolutely. Or listens to the Polite Society podcast.
Could very well be.
Oh.
There you go.
Let's go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah, Paul. No, please.
I want to get a couple comments in real fast if I could. And these are about the last story we had. John says, ADT warns me and calls the cops. The dogs warn me if I'm home. The dogs warn me. And usually the dogs will send, the sound of the dogs will send people scurrying away, including salesmen, which is kind of nice. But, anyway. And then going off on our, what do you have? Her, because she's not being nice, and for some, I've got it routed so the sound she makes should go through the soundboard and out on the air, but for some reason it's not right now. But John over at Sandhills Media, let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor.
Nice.
So, all right, and then John's just on fire. I mean, holy cow!
Fire!
All right. Anything we want to talk about more? Because we've got 12 minutes to the bottom of the hour.
On this one, it doesn't cost you anything when you do dry practice to do it with your briefcase in one hand a couple times, to do it with your lunchbox or your cup of coffee, and you go, oh, wow, dump, or, oh, I've got a problem. If you can get a partner, you take the cup of coffee, you take my wallet, and then you move and present. All of a sudden, that's high quality training. It didn't cost you a penny, just a half ounce of imagination. You can do it in your living room.
Yep.
There's a lot of the females who are office people, executives, that type, who go to work in heels, in suits, in dresses, who go to the range in heels and suits and dresses because they practice the way that they dress so that they know where their balance is, they know how they can access. And I hear stories of other people at the range sitting back and watching, sort of like the guys watch Charlie when he goes to do a gun grab.
Well, they watch me when I show up in the range in my boxers and a bathrobe too.
Yeah.
They watch from a distance.
The pig over on the YouTube side says, "Shoot, my 3 beagles will hold the flashlight for the goblin."
The goblin. Yep, here, rub my belly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Larry's got a great point. Just because you carry does not mean that is your first response.
Mm-hmm.
Great point, Larry.
That is a great point, yes. However, if somebody forcibly enters my house, yeah, it may not be my first response, but it's darn near there. I mean,
right. It's in the top 3 right there.
Yeah,
it's a close second.
If you make it all the way in where the dog's going nuts, there's definite intent going on there.
Yeah, my top one may be to be swearing while I'm pulling my gun, but it's all kind of in there.
Exactly. And fair warning, if you happen to learn where the Lathrop household is and plan to attack late at night, which for here is about 9 p.m., if you plan on attacking late at night, I do not get dressed when I practice get up and get ready drills. So, there it is.
That ought to be a deterrent.
All right, let's go to break, and then we're going to do our last segment, and we'll shut the show down for the week. Hang on, everybody. We got one more segment to go. We'll be right back right after we hear from JPFO.
In 1928, Germany required its citizens to register their firearms, making possible Hitler's 1938 Nazi Weapons Act, disarming all Jews. Now ask yourself, what is the real consequence of registration? All in favor of gun control, raise your right hand. Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, America's aggressive civil rights organization. jpfo.org.
Hey, welcome back to the final segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. I gotta get this one up, and it's a great idea. McPig says, run a session with your winter gloves on. Yeah, if you wear them out and about, yeah.
Yep. That'll teach you that you probably have to rip off your gloves. Yes, sir. No, great point.
Yeah.
All right. At this point, normally I look at Rob and say, Rob, what have you been writing over at Slowfax, and what other media stuff have you got that has come out recently?
We saw a 15-point decrease in our support of gun control over the last 5 years. According to the Gallup poll, Republicans rejected gun control by an additional 14 points in 2020. Oddly enough, independents didn't. Independents turned their back on gun control by 15 points, but in 2021. Only Democrat voters continued to think that gun control would bring us peace, while last year's murder rate rose by an average of 30%. Now, in some Democrat-controlled cities, the murder rate doubled. That article, Why Political Moderates Walked Away from Gun Control. I also, because of recent history, wrote about school safety. And this is a conversation I've heard. School administrator says, I'm concerned about your child's physical safety at school. We want to train school staff so they can stop violent attacks in school and then treat the injured. A parent says, staff and students, they shouldn't have to worry about violent attacks in school. Excuse me? I wish this was a fantasy story. But that summarizes the complaints I've read about protecting our children in school. That's called Idealism is Killing Our Kids at School. My articles are up at Clash Daily, at Amoland, and at my blog, slowfax.wordpress.com. My colleague John Richardson posts at onlygunsandmoney.com. Charlie, what have you been writing about?
Charlie, writing?
Excuse me.
Right.
Video.
That's all right. I write about it too. I'm going to be putting out episode 134 of Riding Shotgun with Charlie tomorrow. And my passenger in tomorrow's show is Stephen Gutowski, who was awarded the Journalist of the Year at the Second Amendment Foundation's Gun Rights Policy Conference this year. And over the holiday break, I am looking at taking a quick trip down the eastern seaboard, halfway down the eastern seaboard, to film a show or two over the holiday vacation. That's what I got. Amanda, what is happening with you?
Well, I'm, besides doing Eye on the Target Radio, I am doing Women for Gun Rights. And so this past week, I interviewed Kelly Pigeon. So I'm doing a little bit of traveling, and then we've got SHOT Show, and so I'm trying to get a couple shows in the can so that every week there is something new that comes up, and yet I'm not there to do it. So so you guys, if you watch Women for Gun Rights, watch the backgrounds and see if you can figure out which ones are pre-recorded and which ones aren't, because we're trying to make them invisible to you. Yeah, some of them I'm recording either very early in the morning or very late at night, but we're getting it done.
I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, does she change the background at different times? But but I guess the background's not what it's not what the look changes, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you look a little more tired.
Yeah, I think I'm sleeping, right? Yeah.
All right, I want
to. So, Paul, what about you?
Well, most of my attention has been focused around getting everything I need here to do the drop down green screen, meaning the green screen itself, a stud finder so we can find out where to secure it, and the lighting to light the green screen so it actually works, and then getting ready for the big move. And I don't know if I mentioned it on the Daily Bullet. I don't know if I mentioned it here. There may or may not be a Polite Society podcast next week, depending on how the emptying, rearranging, and resetting the studio goes. That's good. It's a full day to tear everything down, and then a full day to rebuild everything. Plus, I have to install the green screen. So we'll see. And I've got Sunday and maybe Monday to get it done. So we'll see how everything works. There may or may not be a show next Monday. Before we take off, I've got to get this comment in because I want to talk about it. John over at Sandhills Media asked, honest question, is it better to train with gloves on or to train to quickly remove your glove? Honestly, I would go with removing the glove.
Yeah, I mean, I guess depending on the kind of gun that you have and how big your trigger guard is, your finger might not fit in there very comfortably.
I'd give it a try first, and then you'll know which way it is.
Dry fire, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, I mean, if you're at the range, then rock on. But at home,
yeah, no, that would be bad. It ruins the floor.
My beautiful wife a few years ago, and I don't know where they went, but she got me glove mittens. They are fingerless gloves, but they have a flip back thing with some Velcro. So they're great for driving, but when it gets really cold, you just take the Velcro, you rip it, and then there's a mitten part, and I think Rob froze on me. That or he's really concentrating. No, he was just really concentrating. The Velcro, when you release the Velcro, the mitten part comes up and over your fingers, and you keep your fingers nice and toasty warm. However, if you're doing something dexterous, you can just pop that off, and you got use for all your fingers. And Larry says you can buy Schuer's hunting gloves with an opening for your trigger finger. Okay.
There we go.
All right. Well, that does do it. Let's see here. I got to go and I got to scroll because, again, this is episode 606, but I still got to read this stuff. So I want to remind everybody about the Facebook listeners group. If you're watching on Facebook, when we're done, just search Facebook for Polite Society Podcast Listeners. I don't post there a lot. I do watch what goes on in there, but every week we get more and more listeners in there, and there's some great posts that go on. A lot of it is a moderated group, so we don't, there's no anti-gun stuff you're going to find in there. So check that out. Just search Facebook for Polite Society Podcast listeners. That does wrap up another episode of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society Podcast. I'd like to thank Holly Sullivan for joining us today. So for Amy, Dana, Tracy, John, Susan, Amanda, Robin, Charlie, and Rob.
Until next time.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
All right, before I shut the streams down, we're done recording. Before I shut the streams down, I want to say thank you to everybody that's joined us live, and have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. This will be the last Polite Society podcast, possibly before the end of the year. But do come join me for the Daily Bullet Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week, please. So I think that's going to do it, guys. I'm going to go ahead and shut the streams down. And thanks for watching, everybody.